Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the English Globe, where we explore fascinating stories from history, culture, and language. Today, we are diving into one of the most remarkable periods in English history, a time of greatness and cultural achievement, known as the Elizabethan era. Before we begin, we kindly ask you to like this video and subscribe to our channel, the English Globe, so you won't miss any of our educational content.
Yes, and we would love to hear from you. Please tell us in the comments where you are listening from and share your thoughts on today's topic. Did you know that during Queen Elizabeth I's reign, England experienced a time often called the Golden Age because of its achievements in culture, politics, and exploration? This period shaped the future of England in ways that still influence the world today.
Elizabeth became queen in 1558, a time when England faced many challenges, including religious conflicts, economic instability, and political tension with powerful nations across Europe. Despite these challenges, her reign is remembered as one of prosperity, creativity, and national pride. Listeners, as English learners, you can learn not just history, but also important vocabulary, like words related to leadership, governance, and culture, by listening carefully to these stories.
Exactly. During this era, England became more than just a country in Europe. It became a place of literature, art, and exploration, where great minds like William Shakespeare and explorers like Sir Francis Drake began to leave their mark on the world. Today we will explore how Elizabeth's leadership, her vision, and the achievements of her time created what we now call the Golden Age.
It is also important to understand the historical context, dear listeners. In the 16th century, England was still recovering from the upheaval caused by religious changes and wars with other European nations. People's lives were uncertain, but Queen Elizabeth's intelligence, determination, and diplomacy helped create a sense of stability and progress. By listening to this podcast, you can also improve your English while learning fascinating historical facts about the people, the culture, and the politics of that time.
And remember, the Elizabethan era is not only about politics and battles. It is about the rise of literature, theatre, and education. Schools and universities flourished, and writers created works that are still read and performed today. Learning about this period can also help you understand modern English because many words and phrases we use today started to become popular during Elizabeth's reign.
So, as we begin this journey through time, think about how learning history can help you understand not only language, but also the values, challenges, and achievements of past societies. Imagine walking through the streets of London during Elizabeth's reign, hearing the clatter of horses, seeing merchants selling goods, and watching plays performed in wooden theaters. It is an exciting time to explore, and we will guide you through it carefully, explaining new words and ideas as we go.
Yes. And while we explore this fascinating period, do not forget to engage with us. Like the video, subscribe to the English Globe, and write in the comments where you are from and your opinions about Queen Elizabeth I and the Golden Age. Sharing your thoughts helps us connect with learners around the world and makes history feel alive and personal.
In this first section, we are setting the stage for everything that comes next. The challenges Elizabeth faced, her early life, her rise to power, and the incredible achievements of her reign. Understanding the context will make the rest of the story more meaningful, and it will help you improve your English by learning history in a simple, clear, and engaging way.
So, dear listeners, get ready to step into the world of Elizabethan England, a time of creativity, courage, and growth. We will explore her life, her decisions, and her impact on England. And by the end of this podcast, you will not only know more about history, but also learn useful English words and phrases to strengthen your language skills.
Let's begin our journey, dear listeners, into the fascinating era of Queen Elizabeth I and discover why her reign is remembered as England's Golden Age. Dear listeners, as we continue our journey through the Golden Age of England, let us now explore the early life of Queen Elizabeth I. She was born on September 7, 1533, to King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Elizabeth's birth was a moment of hope, but also of tension, as her father had faced difficulty in securing a male heir, and the country's religious landscape was already changing. From the beginning, Elizabeth's life was shaped by politics, family struggles, and the expectations of a kingdom.
That's right, Adam. Elizabeth's childhood was full of challenges. After her mother was executed when Elizabeth was only 2 years old, she was declared illegitimate, which could have ended her chances of ever becoming queen. Despite these hardships, Elizabeth received an exceptional education, which was unusual for girls at the time. She studied Latin, Greek, French, and Italian, as well as subjects like history, philosophy, and theology. Her learning gave her confidence and prepared her for the challenges ahead.
Exactly, Julia. Elizabeth's intelligence and education were extraordinary, even compared to boys of her age. Her tutors included some of the best scholars of the time, and she developed a love for reading, writing, and knowledge that stayed with her throughout her life. Listeners, think about how learning multiple languages and understanding history and politics helped Elizabeth communicate effectively and make wise decisions when she became queen. Her early life shows that education and curiosity are powerful tools for success.
Yes, and Elizabeth's upbringing also taught her resilience. Growing up in a royal court full of intrigue and danger, she learned how to navigate complex social and political situations. She observed her father's reign, her siblings' struggles, and the volatility of the English monarchy, which prepared her to handle the pressure of ruling a nation. For English learners, this is a great example of how paying attention, listening carefully, and learning from experience can improve both language skills and life skills.
Indeed. Elizabeth also had a love for music, poetry, and the arts from a young age. She often composed poems herself and enjoyed listening to performances at court. This appreciation for culture would later influence the flourishing of arts during her reign. Dear listeners, noticing the connection between a person's childhood interests and their later achievements can help you understand historical figures more deeply, and it can also expand your vocabulary as we describe emotions, skills, and activities.
Another important aspect of her early life was her relationship with her family and advisors. Although she faced rejection from some members of her family, she also had loyal supporters who guided her. These experiences taught her the importance of trust, patience, and careful judgment. As English learners, paying attention to how Elizabeth communicated with others can help you practice phrases for diplomacy, leadership, and respectful conversation, which are valuable skills in everyday life.
Listeners, it is also interesting to note that Elizabeth was curious about the world beyond England. Even as a young girl, she read about history, geography, and other countries, which later helped her understand politics, trade, and exploration. Her early education made her not only a skilled communicator, but also a strategic thinker. For English learners, reading about historical curiosity can inspire you to read more broadly, learn new words, and connect language learning with understanding the world.
Absolutely, Adam. By the time she was a teenager, Elizabeth had already shown remarkable intelligence, resilience, and creativity. Despite being declared illegitimate and facing uncertainty about her future, she never gave up. She focused on her education, strengthened her skills, and prepared herself for leadership. This is an inspiring lesson for learners. No matter what challenges you face, determination, learning, and curiosity can guide you towards success, both in language learning and in life.
Yes, Julia. Understanding Elizabeth's early life gives us a foundation to appreciate her reign. It shows that great leaders often start by developing knowledge, skills, and resilience early on. Listeners, As we share these stories, remember that learning history can improve your English because you encounter new words, expressions, and sentence structures while learning fascinating facts about the past. Combining history and language learning can make your practice more interesting and effective.
So, dear listeners, in this section, we have seen how Elizabeth's childhood and education shaped her character, intelligence, and determination. Her early life was full of challenges, but it also gave her the tools to become one of the most remarkable queens in history.
Now, as we prepare to explore how Elizabeth became queen and faced the political challenges of her time, keep in mind the importance of education, resilience, and curiosity. These qualities helped her rise above difficulties and guide England into its golden age. Let us continue our journey into Elizabethan England and discover how her early preparation shaped the future of a nation and the language we use to describe it today. Dear listeners, now we come to one of the most important moments in English history, Elizabeth's accession to the throne in 1558. At that time, England was facing a very difficult political situation. The country had suffered through years of religious unrest, economic struggles, and political uncertainty. Elizabeth became queen after the death of her half-sister, Mary I, who had tried to restore Catholicism in England. Many people were worried about the future, and Elizabeth had to carefully consider every step she took as she assumed the crown.
That's right, Adam. Elizabeth faced many challenges from the very beginning. The most pressing was the religious conflict between Catholics and Protestants. England had been through drastic changes in religion over the previous decades, and many people were afraid of persecution or rebellion. Elizabeth knew that her decisions on religion could determine whether her reign would be peaceful or filled with conflict. She had to balance the interests of both groups, showing wisdom and patience while maintaining her authority as queen.
Indeed, Julia. Her coronation was not only a celebration, but also a carefully planned statement of power and stability. Elizabeth was aware that the eyes of Europe were watching her. She needed to show strength, intelligence, and diplomacy. During the ceremony, she projected confidence, demonstrating that she was ready to lead her country through challenging times. Listeners, it is fascinating to see how a leader's public image can influence people's trust and loyalty, and this lesson applies even when learning English. Observing communication and expression can improve your own speaking skills.
Absolutely, Adam. Elizabeth also had to make strategic decisions about her government and advisors. She chose trusted counselors like William Cecil, who guided her in matters of politics and diplomacy. These choices were vital for maintaining stability in a kingdom that had experienced so much turmoil. Listeners, notice how Elizabeth combined careful planning with intelligence and emotional awareness. This teaches us that leadership is not just about power, but also about understanding people and the situation around you.
Another interesting aspect, dear listeners, is how Elizabeth managed her image as a female monarch in a male-dominated society. She was sometimes called the Virgin Queen, and she used her personal image to strengthen her authority. By remaining unmarried, she avoided political alliances that could have weakened her position, yet she skillfully negotiated with foreign powers. Her decisions were carefully thought out to protect England's interests and maintain her independence. This shows how strategy and careful thinking are essential in leadership.
Yes, and the historical significance of Elizabeth's accession cannot be overstated. By handling these challenges wisely, she laid the foundation for the golden age of England. Her reign would later be marked by cultural flourishing, economic growth, and military success. Elizabeth's careful decision-making, diplomacy, and ability to navigate complex religious and political landscapes became a model for effective leadership. Listeners, understanding this helps us learn both history and the vocabulary of politics, negotiation, and diplomacy.
Listeners, Elizabeth's accession teaches us that leadership requires intelligence, patience, and the ability to balance competing interests. She faced immense pressure from foreign powers, religious groups, and her own advisors. Yet she succeeded by thinking carefully, listening to wise counsel, and projecting confidence. This period shows how knowledge and preparation can transform challenges into opportunities, which is a lesson we can apply not only in history, but in language learning and personal growth as well.
Exactly, Adam. As we look at this moment in history, we see that Elizabeth's early decisions set the tone for the rest of her reign. Her ability to remain calm, intelligent, and strategic helped England survive a dangerous and uncertain time. For English learners, discussing historical events like this can improve comprehension skills and expand vocabulary related to leadership, governance, and negotiation. It also helps you think critically about the consequences of decisions and the importance of planning ahead.
So, dear listeners, in this section, we have explored Elizabeth's accession to the throne, the political challenges she faced, and the careful decisions she made to balance power and diplomacy. By understanding her approach, we gain insight into how a leader can guide a nation through uncertainty and create a foundation for progress.
Now, as we move forward, we will explore how Elizabeth established her government, managed her court, and navigated the complex world of advisors and officials. This will show us even more about her wisdom, intelligence, and skill as a ruler. Dear listeners, continue with us as we step deeper into Elizabethan England, learning history and English together.
As we continue our journey into Elizabethan England, let us now explore one of the most fascinating aspects of her reign, the government and the royal court. Queen Elizabeth I understood that ruling England successfully required not only intelligence and courage, but also a strong and loyal network of advisors and officials. The court was more than a place for ceremonies and celebrations. It was the heart of political power, where decisions about law, trade, military, and diplomacy were made. Elizabeth carefully selected people she could trust, and who had the skills to guide her in critical matters.
That's right, Adam. One of the most important figures in Elizabeth's government was William Cecil, later known as Lord Burghley. He was her principal advisor and played a key role in shaping policies, negotiating with foreign powers, and managing internal affairs. Another essential figure was Francis Walsingham, her spymaster, who provided intelligence on threats both inside and outside England. Together, these advisors helped Elizabeth make decisions that protected the country and strengthened her authority. Listeners, this shows the importance of choosing wise advisors, a lesson that can also apply to learning English. Just like Elizabeth trusted the right people for guidance, learners can benefit from following experienced teachers and reliable sources.
Yes, Julia, and the structure of Elizabeth's government was carefully organized. England had different councils, each responsible for specific matters such as finance, law, and military affairs. The Privy Council, composed of Elizabeth's most trusted advisors, was crucial in implementing her policies and ensuring stability. Elizabeth often listened to debates, considered different opinions, and made the final decision herself. Listeners, notice how this teaches us about leadership and decision-making. Careful listening, evaluating advice, and acting wisely are important skills, not just in history, but in everyday life and language learning.
Another fascinating aspect of the court was the balance between personal relationships and professional duties. Elizabeth had to manage nobles who sometimes competed for influence, favors, or positions. She used her intelligence, charm, and strategy to maintain harmony and prevent conflicts that could weaken her reign. For English learners, observing how she communicated and negotiated with her courtiers is helpful because it introduces vocabulary and expressions related to diplomacy, negotiation, and social interaction. The court was not only a political space, but also a place where Elizabeth honed her social and leadership skills.
Indeed, Julia. The court was also a center for culture, art, and education. Elizabeth encouraged learning and creativity, hosting poets, musicians, and scholars at her palace. This environment allowed her to understand the importance of knowledge and the arts in strengthening her kingdom. It was not only about entertainment, it was also about demonstrating power, sophistication, and the intellectual strength of the monarchy. Listeners, you can see how integrating culture and knowledge can make leadership more effective and respected, and it reminds us of the value of reading, listening, and learning new words in English.
Listeners, it is important to highlight that Elizabeth's court was carefully designed to reflect her authority and wisdom. The Queen was often at the centre of events, giving speeches, receiving ambassadors, and overseeing important ceremonies. Yet, she maintained control without appearing harsh or unfair. She understood the delicate balance between showing strength and encouraging loyalty. This skill helped her survive in a time when rulers often faced rebellion, political intrigue, or threats from foreign powers. For learners, analysing her communication style can improve understanding of formal English, as well as the ability to express ideas clearly and politely.
Another important part of her government was diplomacy. Elizabeth understood that England could not succeed by isolation. She maintained relationships with other countries, negotiated treaties, and sometimes used marriage alliances as a political tool, even though she never married herself. Her careful diplomatic strategies allowed England to avoid major wars for much of her reign and strengthened her position in Europe. Listeners, understanding diplomacy teaches us how words, timing, and strategy can influence outcomes, whether in politics, business, or language learning. Choosing the right words, speaking politely, and understanding the audience are all essential skills.
Yes, Adam. We also see that Elizabeth valued intelligence and information. She relied heavily on reports from her spies and ambassadors, and she paid attention to details in letters, documents, and negotiations. This careful attention to information helped her make informed decisions and avoid mistakes. Listeners, you can apply this lesson to learning English by paying attention to reading carefully, noting details, and asking questions to understand new information better. Elizabeth's method of combining knowledge, observation, and careful judgment can inspire learners to approach language learning strategically and thoughtfully.
The Elizabethan court was not without its challenges, however. Nobles often competed for influence, foreign threats loomed, and religious tensions persisted. Elizabeth had to maintain authority while keeping allies close and managing rivals skillfully. She used ceremonies, gestures, and clear communication to reinforce her image as a strong and intelligent leader. Listeners, this shows that leadership is not only about power, but also about perception, planning, and careful action. Similarly, in learning English, building confidence, listening carefully, and using strategies to communicate effectively are key to success.
Another lesson from Elizabeth's government is how she combined flexibility with firmness. She was open to advice, but also decisive when needed. She understood when to negotiate and when to assert authority. This balance was crucial in preventing crises and maintaining England's stability. Listeners, this teaches us that success, whether in leadership, learning English, or personal life, often requires understanding when to be flexible and when to stay firm. It is a valuable skill that applies across many areas of life.
Dear listeners, Elizabeth's court and government demonstrate the importance of planning, intelligence, and strategy. Her careful selection of advisors, understanding of political and social dynamics, and ability to balance diplomacy and authority allowed her to lead England through a complex period. For English learners, this history provides opportunities to learn vocabulary related to politics, leadership, negotiation, and culture. By listening and reflecting on these stories, you can improve comprehension, speaking, and critical thinking skills simultaneously.
So, as we conclude this section, dear listeners, we see that Elizabeth's government and court were central to her success. They were carefully organized, culturally vibrant, and strategically powerful. By studying her leadership, communication, and decision-making, we gain insight not only into history, but also into important life and language skills. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and write in the comments your thoughts about Elizabeth's government and court. Where are you listening from, and what surprised you most about her strategies?
Now, listeners, prepare to explore the next critical topic, the religious reforms and the Elizabethan religious settlement, where we will see how Elizabeth balanced her kingdom's faith, avoided conflicts, and strengthened England's unity. This section will give us more examples of her intelligence, patience, and careful decision-making, which continue to inspire learners and leaders alike. Dear listeners, as we continue our journey through Elizabethan England, one of the most challenging issues Queen Elizabeth I faced was religion. England had been deeply divided between Catholics and Protestants, and religious tensions often caused conflict, fear, and political instability. Elizabeth understood that handling religion carefully was essential for maintaining peace and stability. She knew that extreme measures could lead to rebellion or even foreign intervention, so she chose a moderate, thoughtful approach to guide her kingdom.
That's right, Adam. In 1559, Elizabeth introduced what became known as the Elizabethan Religious Settlement, a set of laws and policies designed to unify England under a single moderate form of Protestantism while avoiding harsh persecution of Catholics. This settlement included reforms in the Church of England, ceremonies, and prayer practices. Elizabeth's goal was not to force complete conformity, but to create a balanced approach that would allow her people to practice their faith while keeping the kingdom stable and secure from internal divisions or outside threats.
Listeners, what is remarkable about Elizabeth's approach is her focus on compromise and careful decision-making. She avoided extreme measures, instead emphasizing moderation, tolerance, and unity. This helped prevent large-scale religious wars in England during her early reign. By balancing the demands of different religious groups, Elizabeth demonstrated leadership that prioritized the well-being of her nation. For English learners, examining her policies helps understand historical terms related to governance, diplomacy, and religion, which are often used in modern political and social contexts.
Exactly, Adam. The settlement included the Act of Supremacy, which confirmed Elizabeth as the supreme governor of the Church of England, and the Act of Uniformity, which set out a common form of worship and prayer. These laws established a framework that allowed England to move forward with a more consistent religious practice while maintaining flexibility. Elizabeth's careful wording and policies showed her skill in managing potentially dangerous conflicts and demonstrated how strategic language and lawmaking can shape society.
Another important aspect for listeners is how Elizabeth balanced the needs of Protestants and Catholics. She allowed certain Catholic traditions to continue privately, while publicly emphasizing Protestant worship and practices. This careful balance helped her gain support from both groups and reduced the risk of rebellion. Her approach was based on wisdom, observation, and careful negotiation. English learners can benefit from understanding how communication, compromise, and careful word choice are essential in leadership and everyday interactions, as well as in studying history.
Elizabeth also understood the political implications of religion. Many European nations were closely monitoring England, and religious unrest could invite invasion or political interference. By managing religion with moderation, Elizabeth maintained England's independence and strengthened her authority. Listeners, this shows that decisions about faith, law, and governance were deeply connected to diplomacy, national security, and societal stability. Learning about these historical connections can improve comprehension of political and religious vocabulary in English and help us understand modern governance concepts.
Furthermore, Elizabeth's settlement influenced everyday life in England. It shaped how people attended church, practiced rituals, and expressed their beliefs. Her moderate approach helped ordinary citizens feel safer and more included in national life. Listeners, by exploring this historical period, you are not only learning facts, but also encountering vocabulary related to religion, politics, law, and society, which is essential for English learners interested in history, governance, or cultural understanding.
Another interesting point is that Elizabeth's approach required patience and intelligence. She frequently consulted advisors, observed reactions, and adjusted her strategies to maintain peace. This teaches us a valuable lesson. Leadership is not only about power, but also about listening, learning, and responding thoughtfully to complex challenges. For English learners, paying attention to historical examples like this can improve critical thinking and introduce language used to describe negotiation, compromise, and social harmony.
Dear listeners, the Elizabethan religious settlement shows us how a leader can address deeply divisive issues with wisdom, strategy, and moderation. Elizabeth avoided extreme measures, listened to her advisors, and carefully balanced the interests of Protestants and Catholics. Her policies not only strengthened England politically and socially, but also created a stable foundation for the cultural and economic achievements of the Golden Age. English learners can gain both vocabulary and insights into leadership, decision-making, and diplomacy from this period.
Yes, Adam. Understanding Elizabeth's approach helps us see that history is more than dates and events. It is about people, choices, and the impact of decisions on society. By studying the religious settlement, we learn words and expressions related to religion, politics, and compromise, and we also see how careful planning and communication can prevent conflict and promote unity. Listeners, this is an excellent example of how history and language learning can be combined effectively.
So, dear listeners, in this section, we explored the challenges Elizabeth faced with religion, her moderate approach, and the Elizabethan religious settlement. By balancing the needs of different religious groups, she maintained peace, strengthened her kingdom, and demonstrated leadership that remains a model for negotiation and diplomacy.
Now, as we continue our journey, we will explore the cultural achievements of the Elizabethan era, including literature, theatre, and music, which made this period truly remarkable. Listeners, stay with us as we discover how Elizabeth's leadership not only stabilized England, but also allowed creativity and learning to flourish across the nation, providing lessons for history and English learners alike.
Dear listeners, as we continue exploring the Golden Age of England under Queen Elizabeth I, one of the most remarkable aspects of her reign was the flourishing of culture. This period saw an extraordinary growth in literature, theatre, music, and art, which reflected the intelligence, creativity, and ambition of Elizabeth's England. The Queen herself valued learning and encouraged the arts, understanding that a strong culture could inspire national pride, enhance education, and strengthen England's international reputation.
That's right, Adam. One of the most famous figures of this period was William Shakespeare, whose plays are still celebrated around the world. Shakespeare's work reflected human emotions, historical events, and societal values of the time. Another important writer was Christopher Marlowe, whose tragedies and poetry explored bold themes of ambition, love, and power. Listeners, these literary works provide a fascinating way to learn English vocabulary, expressions, and sentence structures while understanding the culture and history of Elizabethan England.
Indeed, Julia. Theatre became a central part of public life during Elizabeth's reign. Playhouses were built in London, such as the Globe, where audiences from all walks of life could enjoy performances. These plays often reflected social issues, political themes, and moral lessons. Elizabeth herself enjoyed attending performances and understood their power to entertain, educate, and unite people. For English learners, watching or reading plays from this period is a wonderful way to improve listening, reading, and comprehension skills, while also gaining insight into historical customs and values.
Music also played an essential role in the cultural Renaissance. Composers like William Byrd created works for court, church, and public performance. Elizabeth valued music not only for its beauty, but also for its ability to inspire loyalty and enhance ceremonies. Listeners, understanding music and poetry from this era helps learners recognize rhythm, patterns, and pronunciation in English, making language learning both enjoyable and effective. Music, like literature, reflects emotions and ideas that are universal, connecting people across centuries.
Another important aspect of the Elizabethan Renaissance was the rise of visual arts. Painters, engravers, and craftsmen produced works that decorated palaces, churches, and homes of the wealthy. Portraits of Elizabeth I, for example, were carefully designed to reflect her strength, intelligence, and majesty. These images were not only decorative, but also political, sending messages about the Queen's authority and the power of England. For learners, studying descriptions of art and symbols can expand vocabulary and improve descriptive language skills.
Listeners, it is also interesting to note that education and intellectual curiosity were highly valued during this period. Schools and universities flourished, teaching classical subjects alongside modern knowledge. Elizabeth herself was a well-educated queen who read widely and engaged with scholars, scientists, and writers. This intellectual environment encouraged innovation, exploration, and creativity. English learners can benefit by reading texts from the period, which introduce historical words and expressions while teaching grammar and sentence structure naturally.
The cultural achievements of the Elizabethan era were closely linked to the Queen's leadership. By promoting the arts, literature, and education, she created a society that valued knowledge and creativity. This not only enhanced national pride, but also attracted attention from other countries, establishing England as a cultural power. Listeners, this shows how leadership and culture are connected. A society that invests in learning, expression, and creativity can achieve lasting influence, a lesson that applies to both life and language learning.
Another fascinating element is how literature and theatre reflected everyday life, political challenges, and moral questions. Plays often explored themes like loyalty, ambition, love, and justice. Writers and performers used language creatively, introducing idioms, metaphors, and expressive phrases that are still used in English today. Listeners, by engaging with these works, you can improve vocabulary, understand sentence patterns, and develop better comprehension skills, while also enjoying the stories and emotions that connect past and present.
Indeed, Julia. Elizabeth's reign demonstrated the power of culture to unite a nation, inspire creativity, and leave a lasting legacy. Poetry, music, theater, and visual arts were not merely entertainment. They were tools for education, diplomacy, and social cohesion. Listeners, exploring these achievements teaches us that learning a language is similar. Immersion, creativity, and engagement with meaningful content enhance understanding and retention. Using history, stories, and arts as learning tools makes English both accessible and enjoyable.
Yes, Adam. The Elizabethan cultural renaissance shows us the importance of nurturing creativity alongside knowledge and leadership. By valuing arts, education, and expression, Elizabeth strengthened her kingdom and created a legacy that still inspires the world. For English learners, this period offers a rich source of vocabulary, idioms, and sentence structures. By reading, listening, and discussing literature, music, and art from this era, learners can expand their skills while gaining a deep appreciation for history and culture.
So, dear listeners, in this section, we explored the cultural achievements of Elizabethan England, including literature, theater, music, and art. we saw how Elizabeth's support for the arts promoted education, creativity, and national pride.
Now, listeners, as we move forward, we will explore exploration and trade expansion during Elizabeth's reign. This period of discovery not only increased England's wealth and influence, but also shaped global connections and opportunities. Stay with us as we continue learning about how Elizabeth's leadership and vision created a golden age, providing lessons for both history and language learners around the world.
Dear listeners, as we continue our journey through Elizabethan England, we arrive at a period of remarkable exploration and trade expansion. Queen Elizabeth I encouraged English sailors and adventurers to explore distant lands, seeking new opportunities, wealth, and knowledge. Explorers like Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh became national heroes, sailing across oceans, mapping unknown territories, and bringing back treasures that contributed to England's growing influence.
That's right, Adam. These voyages were not only adventurous, but also economically and politically significant. Trade with new lands brought valuable resources such as spices, gold, silver, and other commodities, increasing England's wealth and strengthening its position in Europe. Listeners, understanding the connection between exploration and trade can introduce you to important historical and economic vocabulary, like commerce, navigation, colonization, and maritime power, which are useful in both English learning and understanding history.
Indeed, Julia. Sir Francis Drake is famous for circumnavigating the globe between 1577 and 1580, a journey that demonstrated the skill, courage, and ambition of Elizabethan sailors. His voyages also challenged Spain, England's main rival at the time, and brought back wealth and prestige for the Queen. Listeners, studying these historical figures teaches us about leadership, risk-taking, and strategic thinking, as well as introducing vocabulary related to ships, navigation, and exploration, which are essential for describing historical and modern journeys.
Another important figure was Sir Walter Raleigh, who explored the Americas and attempted to establish colonies in what is now North Carolina. Although his settlements faced difficulties, his efforts marked the beginnings of English colonization and paved the way for future expansion. These early colonies strengthened England's influence overseas and created new trade routes that connected distant parts of the world. Listeners, learning about Raleigh and other explorers also introduces words like settlement, colony, and expedition, which are common in historical and geographical discussions.
Listeners, it is fascinating to see how Elizabethan England used trade to expand its global reach. Merchants and companies traded with Africa, the Americas, and Asia, importing goods like sugar, tobacco, and textiles. This trade created wealth, encouraged innovation, and established networks that connected England to the wider world. For English learners, studying this period can enhance vocabulary related to economics, trade, and navigation, while helping you understand the origins of global commerce and international relations.
Yes, Adam. Elizabeth encouraged exploration not only for economic gain, but also for political and strategic reasons. By supporting privateers and trading companies, she challenged rival nations, expanded England's influence, and promoted national pride. These expeditions required careful planning, navigation skills, and knowledge of maps and astronomy. Listeners, this shows how language can be used to describe complex ideas like exploration, strategy, and diplomacy, which are still relevant today in history, business, and global studies.
Another interesting aspect is the role of knowledge and technology in exploration. Sailors used tools such as compasses, astrolabes, and maps to navigate the seas, and the sharing of information between explorers, scientists, and the Queen's advisors was crucial for successful voyages. Listeners, understanding these historical tools and methods introduces terms related to navigation, cartography, and maritime science, which are essential for describing travel, exploration, and trade in both historical and modern contexts.
The Elizabethan expansion also contributed to cultural exchange. Ideas, goods, and technologies flowed between England and new lands, influencing society, education, and innovation. This period marked the beginning of England's transformation into a global power, laying the foundations for future exploration, colonization, and international trade. For English learners, reading and listening to stories about exploration helps build vocabulary related to geography, culture, and commerce, while improving comprehension skills through engaging historical narratives.
Listeners, it is also important to highlight the risks and challenges faced by explorers. Long voyages across unknown seas were dangerous, with threats from storms, disease, and hostile encounters. Yet, Elizabeth's support, strategic planning, and careful selection of leaders allowed England to achieve remarkable success. This teaches us a valuable lesson. Careful preparation, courage, and resourcefulness can overcome challenges. In language learning, the same principle applies. Practice, study, and engagement help you overcome difficulties in learning English.
Another fascinating aspect is how exploration and trade strengthened England's position in Europe. By establishing colonies, creating trade networks, and supporting adventurers, Elizabeth increased England's wealth and influence, which helped secure her kingdom politically and economically. Listeners, this period shows the connection between leadership, strategy, and global engagement. Studying these events introduces English vocabulary about exploration, trade, diplomacy, and economics, helping learners discuss historical and modern topics confidently.
Dear listeners, Elizabeth's encouragement of exploration and trade demonstrates her vision for England as a strong and independent nation. By supporting sailors, merchants, and colonies, she expanded the kingdom's reach and created opportunities for wealth and influence that would last for centuries. For English learners, studying this era teaches not only history, but also important words and concepts related to commerce, geography, navigation, and leadership. Learning through stories makes language practical and memorable.
Yes, Adam. In summary, the Elizabethan period of exploration and trade expansion shows us how courage, planning, and strategy can transform a nation's future. Elizabeth's leadership allowed England to grow economically, culturally, and politically, connecting with distant lands and people. Listeners, understanding these events provides a historical context for modern vocabulary related to navigation, trade, colonization, and global networks, helping learners improve their English while exploring fascinating historical stories.
So, dear listeners, in this section, we explored the great explorers of Elizabethan England, the beginnings of English colonization, and the global trade networks that contributed to wealth and influence.
Now, listeners, as we move forward, we will examine Elizabeth's challenges with Spain and the defeat of the Spanish Armada, a turning point that defined her reign and demonstrated England's strength. Stay with us as we continue to learn about leadership, strategy, and historical events that shaped England's golden age while improving your English skills through history.
As we continue exploring the golden age of England under Queen Elizabeth I, one of the most dramatic events of her reign was the threat posed by Spain in 1588. At that time, Spain was the most powerful nation in Europe, and King Philip II planned to invade England with a massive fleet known as the Spanish Armada. This invasion threatened the security, religion, and independence of England. Listeners, understanding the scale of this challenge helps us appreciate Elizabeth's leadership, courage, and strategic thinking in a time of great danger.
That's right, Adam. The Spanish Armada consisted of over 130 ships and thousands of soldiers, making it one of the largest naval forces ever assembled. Elizabeth understood that England's survival depended on courage, skillful planning, and the unity of her people. She inspired her navy and citizens with speeches, guidance, and clear leadership, Listeners, this event introduced English vocabulary related to military strategy, naval warfare, and leadership, which is valuable for describing both historical events and modern challenges.
Indeed, Julia. Elizabeth's famous speech at Tilbury is remembered for its inspiring message. She addressed her troops with confidence, assuring them of her presence and commitment to the nation. She said she was among them in spirit, sharing their risks and encouraging loyalty and courage. This speech not only strengthened morale, but also demonstrated her ability to communicate effectively, motivate people, and lead by example. Listeners, speeches like this show how language can inspire action, build unity, and express determination.
Another crucial element was England's naval power. Although the Spanish fleet was larger, English ships were faster, more maneuverable, and commanded by skilled captains. Elizabeth's advisors, including Sir Francis Drake and Lord Charles Howard, developed strategies to outmaneuver the Armada, using smaller ships to harass the enemy and avoid direct confrontation. Listeners, vocabulary such as fleet, captain, maneuver, blockade, and artillery can be learned through studying these events, which also helps in understanding modern military and naval terminology.
Yes, Julia. Elizabeth's leadership combined intelligence, courage, and strategic planning. She understood the importance of information, preparation, and delegation. By trusting her naval commanders while maintaining overall control, she created a unified response to the Spanish threat. Listeners, analyzing her leadership teaches us valuable lessons about decision-making, teamwork, and communication. The vocabulary associated with planning, defense, and leadership can be applied to many areas beyond history, including business, management, and personal development.
Another interesting point is the role of weather and geography in the Armada's defeat. Strong winds, storms, and the ability to navigate the English Channel played a critical role in dispersing the Spanish fleet. England's knowledge of its coastal waters and quick communication with ships allowed them to capitalize on these advantages. Listeners, words such as channel, fleet, navigation, storm, and harbour are not only historical terms, but also useful in general English conversation, especially when discussing travel, geography, or planning.
The defeat of the Spanish Armada was more than a military victory. It was a psychological and political triumph. Elizabeth's courage, speeches, and support inspired her people, while her navy demonstrated skill, innovation, and bravery. England's reputation as a strong and independent nation was strengthened, and this victory marked a turning point in European politics. Listeners, historical terms such as victory, morale, strategy, and sovereignty help us discuss leadership and the consequences of decisions in clear and precise English.
Indeed. Adam. The Armada's failure also demonstrated the importance of preparation, intelligence, and leadership in overcoming challenges. Elizabeth's careful planning, combined with the bravery of her commanders and sailors, allowed England to survive a potentially devastating threat. Listeners, this teaches us that success often comes from careful thought, teamwork, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Learning vocabulary related to leadership, strategy, and military tactics can enhance both historical understanding and English language skills.
Another aspect of this event is how it highlighted the value of unity and national identity. Elizabeth emphasized the common goal of protecting England, encouraging citizens and soldiers to work together despite differences. Her ability to unify people through words, actions, and symbolic gestures strengthened loyalty and courage. Listeners, studying these leadership strategies helps learners see how language can be a powerful tool to motivate, persuade, and inspire others, whether in history, education, or daily communication.
Listeners, it is also important to note that the Armada's defeat influenced England's future. The victory encouraged the expansion of trade, colonization, and cultural influence, contributing to the continued Golden Age. Elizabeth's reign became a model of strategic thinking, courage, and resilience. For English learners, studying this period provides opportunities to learn words related to naval warfare, defense, leadership, and historical events, while also improving comprehension through detailed storytelling and analysis.
Dear listeners, Elizabeth's handling of the Spanish Armada shows the importance of preparation, strategic thinking, and leadership in overcoming great challenges. Her ability to inspire, trust skilled advisors, and make decisive actions created a victory that strengthened England's security, economy, and international reputation. English learners can use this example to practice vocabulary, sentence structures, and expressions related to military, leadership, and teamwork while enjoying engaging historical narratives.
Yes, Adam. In this section, we explored the threat of the Spanish Armada, Elizabeth's inspiring leadership, the strategic skill of her navy, and the significance of this victory for England's reputation.
Now, as we continue our journey, listeners, we will examine Elizabeth's legacy, the Golden Age, and lessons for leadership and learning. This final section will help us understand how her reign shaped England's culture, politics, and global influence while offering insights for English learners to improve skills and expand knowledge. Dear listeners, as we reach the final part of our journey through the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, it is time to reflect on the valuable lessons her life and leadership offer, not just for history, but also for English learners. Elizabeth's reign teaches us the importance of careful decision-making, resilience, and strategic thinking. By observing her actions, we learn how intelligence, patience, and courage can guide success in leadership, governance, and everyday challenges.
That's right, Adam. One of the most important lessons for learners is the value of curiosity and continuous learning. Elizabeth herself was highly educated, spoke multiple languages, and read widely. Her intellectual curiosity allowed her to understand politics, diplomacy, culture, and science. Listeners, this reminds us that learning English, like studying history, requires curiosity, practice, and dedication. By exploring historical events and figures, we can expand vocabulary, understand sentence structures, and improve reading and listening comprehension.
Indeed, Julia. Another lesson from Elizabeth's Golden Age is the significance of resilience. She faced enormous challenges, including religious conflict, foreign threats, and political intrigue, yet she remained steadfast and focused. For English learners, this is inspiring. Language learning, like leadership, requires perseverance. Mistakes and difficulties are part of the process, but consistent effort, patience, and reflection lead to progress. History shows us that overcoming challenges can lead to growth and achievement.
Listeners, exploring Elizabethan history also teaches the importance of cultural understanding. By learning about literature, theatre, music, and art from this period, we gain insight into society, values, and communication styles. These cultural lessons improve not only language skills, but also empathy and global awareness. English learners benefit from reading stories, listening to historical podcasts, and discussing events, as this strengthens comprehension, vocabulary, and critical thinking, while connecting us with human experiences across time. Another important takeaway is the power of stories in language learning. By studying Elizabeth's life, explorers like Sir Francis Drake or literary figures like Shakespeare, learners encounter new words, phrases, and sentence structures in meaningful contexts. This method of learning is far more effective than memorizing isolated vocabulary because it combines language with real-life events, culture, and emotion. Listeners, storytelling encourages engagement, retention, and practical application of English skills. Yes, Adam. History also teaches us lessons about communication and leadership. Elizabeth's speeches, letters, and policies demonstrate how precise language, persuasion, and clear thinking can influence people and shape events. For learners, analysing historical speeches or writings improves vocabulary, sentence structure understanding, and the ability to express ideas clearly. These skills are valuable not only in language learning, but also in public speaking, writing, and professional communication.
Listeners, reflecting on Elizabeth's achievements reminds us that learning is a lifelong journey. Just as Elizabeth cultivated knowledge, promoted culture, and inspired her people, learners can develop English skills by engaging with history, literature, and real-world examples. Vocabulary, comprehension, and critical thinking grow together when we connect language study with fascinating stories and historical events. This approach makes learning English enjoyable, practical, and memorable.
Another key point is the role of curiosity and exploration. Elizabeth encouraged voyages, trade, and cultural exchange, which led to knowledge, wealth, and influence. Similarly, English learners benefit from exploring different types of texts, audio, and stories. By approaching learning with curiosity, trying new materials, and practicing regularly, learners expand vocabulary, improve comprehension, and develop confidence in speaking and writing, just like explorers expanded England's horizons.
Dear listeners, one of the most valuable lessons is that language learning and history study go hand in hand. By understanding Elizabethan history, learners are exposed to meaningful vocabulary related to leadership, culture, navigation, and diplomacy. They also practice reading, listening, and critical thinking in engaging real-world contexts. Using historical stories as a learning tool provides a unique opportunity to combine language acquisition with cultural enrichment, enhancing both comprehension and enjoyment.
Yes, Adam. Finally, history teaches us about perseverance, intelligence, creativity, and adaptability. Elizabeth's life shows that challenges can be met with courage, careful planning, and strategic thinking. English learners can take inspiration from her example, applying the same determination and curiosity to their studies. By engaging with stories, podcasts, and historical texts, learners can expand vocabulary, strengthen comprehension, and gain confidence, while also understanding the world and its diverse cultures.
So, dear listeners, in this final section, we reflected on the lessons from Elizabethan history for English learners: curiosity, resilience, strategic thinking, cultural awareness, and the value of stories in learning. By studying history, you can improve vocabulary, comprehension, reading, and listening skills while gaining insights into leadership, society, and human behavior. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Yes, Adam. Exploring history makes learning English more meaningful, engaging, and fun. Dear listeners, continue using historical stories, biographies, and podcasts to practice vocabulary, sentence structures, and comprehension. Elizabeth's life shows that learning, perseverance, and curiosity open doors to understanding both language and the world. Stay motivated, keep exploring, and remember that every story you study brings you closer to mastery of English and a deeper understanding of culture and history.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this journey through Elizabethan England. We hope these stories inspire you to continue learning English, exploring history, and applying the lessons of curiosity, resilience, and leadership in your own life. This is the English Globe, guiding you through language and history, one fascinating story at a time.
Until next time, listeners, keep learning, stay curious, and let history guide your English journey. Remember, every story has lessons for your mind, your language, and your understanding of the world.